That's good. All right, we got an MFR up here.
Hey, Joe.
Yo, can you guys hear me?
What do you
Yes.
do, man? How's
Yeah,
it going?
nice. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, sorry we got deep into the weeds with Rect Coin. You've been following that journey there.
Yeah, I've been a long time rec guy holder myself. Big fan of OSF,
Knew it.
Mondo, and the crew. Yeah, they're killing it. Happy to see them winning. It's good.
We love
Thanks
it.
for
Yeah.
having me on.
Oh, excited to be on. So, Joe, you are at Alliance DAO and also the founder of CCO Studios and a normal MFer on Twitter, which
Yeah.
sort of a throwback to some of the early NFT days. A bunch of we can dive in here today, but I kind of want to start off with this CCO part here because I think this is, we've just
Sure.
had NFTs kind of come back into fashion apparently over the last little while. A big part of sort of the community narrative of the last cycle was this idea of CCO, this that NFTs want to be free and or information wants to be free, but provenance should be owned in some way, or that you can participate in creating the lore and mimetic value around these things. And oh, getting a spam call. And there's also, I think, a bunch of teams that made the shift to CCO and then have since reverted back to it. So I'm wondering if you can give us
Yeah.
a pitch for the true believer point of view on CCO NFTs.
Yeah. One of the things I had sort of always wanted to do was produce shows of some kind. They're animated was the one thing I wanted to do. That's what normal MFR has become, adult animation. And then because there are all of these communities that were already like incentivized to be those first 100 people to raid your comments, watch your thing, and like help you get that initial view burst so all the algorithms pick you up, it felt like taking all of these free to use IPs that came from the crypto space was a great place to start. I had fallen in love with the MFR. It's a stick figure. It's super easy to animate. Sort of a natural point to start.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's sort of where the idea came from, and hope to grow the studio into more of like an IP incubator, starting with those things, with the CC0 IP. So like we've grown the YouTube channel to just over like 10,000 subscribers, and then each new mini series that we would put up there would sort of benefit from the flagship series that is normal MFR. So just sort of experiment building different things like that, and then minting them now on Zora and just experimenting with other on-chain tools for creators along the way.
Yeah. So the big news lately is Alliance's partnership with WAP. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that came together and what specifically you two are doing together.
Yeah, we're running a 2-day hackathon. It'll be the fourth. We call it the MVP hackathon. Minimum viable products is the name officially. We've got a couple documentaries that we made up on our YouTube at Alliance DAO's YouTube, so you can see sort of what the process is like. The first one was 14 days, 10 days, 5 days, and we're finding more and more that people are vibe coding the ideas into existence, and then Emron and Shao will talk with each of the devs or the founders to get a sense of who they are. It's sort of like an in-person interview. And we've gotten feedback that like 14 days is a little too long. And so we're trying to see like if you go all the way to the other side, can you get the same amount of work done slash like relationship built with these founders. Yeah, doing
So
it
can you
with
tell?
WAP at the end of August.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, like, for people who don't know WAP, maybe you could give a brief intro to what WAP is and what kind of apps you can build on top of WAP.
Yeah, most of the apps that you could put on a normal app store, you can put up there. They are social first. So the idea of the hackathon is to build something that could go viral. The relationship sort of grew from Slop, which was one of the winners of the previous hackathon. They just got put onto the WAP store. And just like this initial distribution channel for all of these crypto slash AI companies that might want people who are very social first. Sometimes it's hard to get people to pay attention to your product, and by going to WAP, you can run a campaign to incentivize them to comment or clip. It's like well known for their clippers that they have, or spreading the word. But you can run a bunch of different campaigns on there. Yeah.
So Yeah, it's interesting. I think I was trying to rack my brain for like what type of net new or unique things, because I think we've come to know WAP and through sort of the Clipper army and my realization that there is nothing organic on the internet. There is just armies of human beings clipping stuff in for the algorithms. But I'm curious, like is that the way that you might see teams leveraging WAP, or is there like net new types of things to be built here? Like they seem to have these a huge attention base and I guess some new primitives, and I would assume that could lead to new interesting outcomes.
It's part of the reason for the hackathon is to experiment. If you launch in their store first, what could work as far as like the specific type of app? It don't have the answer. It's sort of like, if we're going to build something in 2 days and launch in the app store, do the people who are already on the app, if they've got a lot of daily active users, do they pick up on it? Versus creating something, sending it on Twitter, having everyone affiliated with us retweet it to see, like, are people interested? Just like a new form of getting initial distribution. I'm sure that they've got a bit more to say on the new thing that WAP apps do, but I'm not the expert on that thing.
Fair. So I'm curious, it feels as if there's like a million partners at Alliance. A lot of the images around. I've had interactions with a number of you, but I'm curious if you can give us some insight into how Alliance works today and how you guys all collaborate. And what do you do there?
I help run hackathons, marketing, developer marketing, that kind of stuff. It's like you're similar to like a YC model. There are 3 cohorts a year where you get a bunch of applications in. Emron, Chow, the team will review applications. There will be a few rounds of interviews. This hackathon counts towards that. Like an in-person interview. And then if you resonate well with the team, or you're building something interesting, you're a crack dev, you might get into one of the cohorts, get an initial like pre-seed, and then you go through a 12-week program, the first 3 weeks of which are in person in New York, where you'll have talks from like Jason from Blockworks will come in. And then there's sort of a rotating cast of folks who like give you like industry specific tips and tricks.
Yeah, so with all your experience running these hackathons, I'm curious what your observations are about what's working, what's not. You were saying about shortening the time frame for the interviews has been an insight. What else have you seen, and what do you think about the landscape of hackathons? I know something I've observed is that there's like a difference between builders and founders. How are you looking at the space?
One thing I've learned is devs want to build things, and so if you package it up with 10 different talks, it's often like people either don't attend. So try to have one like S tier guest speaker that has something that they can actually take and apply to what they're building during that 14 days, 7 days, 2-day period, and try to package it sometime around lunchtime where there's a natural break. And then, just like encourage questions, asking, understand like people aren't going to come in with the final idea. And like sometimes there's this sense that you have to be perfect immediately, and it's really more of like an iterative process where devs come in, they get feedback from Emron, Chow, or whoever, Carter, our head of engineering, who will work with them too, sort of work their way through that.
So I think the best part about pre-seed or early stage investing, in my honest opinion, is that you get to see the future at least a few months ahead of others. And so I'm curious, as you're working with some of these early stage teams right now, what are you excited about? What's to come?
Personally, I'm excited to see how AI overlaps with the existing internet in good and bad ways, and what products need to be built to make the best experience for that future. I think we're seeing parts of that right now. We're like, is this good? Is this bad? How do we verify what is human and not? And then personal interests, I think there's definitely overlapping interests with the teams that'll go through the programs too.
Alliance made a big bet on Solana's ecosystem. Is that still Alliance's direction today?
Yeah, I've always been chain agnostic. Got in the weeds with Solana early when they were, sort of in the doldrums around the FTX era. Just stuck it out, so it feels like a big bet, but it really just wasn't abandoning. To this day, we're pretty close with them. Still run a few events. We
Yeah, I
just
think
did our last one with Base too, our last hackathon with Base. So like very much chain agnostic, but do love Solana.
Yeah, I was wondering about the tie-up. I know that there's like a Solana tie-up for this WAP hackathon in particular. I'm curious if you're seeing any synergies between particular chains and social app development.
Yeah, right now it seems like there's a lot of like social use retail folks still on Base and Solana. That's where people are very active. There's a bit of like shifting in institutional use and enthusiasm in ETH world. Like that's, you guys brought that up at the very top, which is exciting. I wasn't around with Alliance when that was sort of where they made their bread and butter in the first few cohorts, but definitely excited to see enthusiasm back there too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious your thinking. If you're leading marketing here, I think what we've seen is a wave, especially of consumer apps that have done a really good job of capturing attention users, driven really by speculative demand, but the ongoing retention of those apps, or even moving into a second or third inning with those apps, has been very challenging. I'm curious, like, what do you think needs to change for those apps to have a chance of being really long-term compounders versus just playing in the novelty loops of speculation?
Good question. I think that's something all the founders are trying to figure out right now, whether it's Alon, Zora, Jacob's doing a bit with that too. Might be a question that gets answered just like when it happens. I don't have like a grand answer for you, but it's definitely a problem we're looking into and that we see founders trying to figure out. You must see some of that too with Seed Club trying to find a fix to keep people around.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. We had OSF at the beginning here talking about rec brands, and it's clearly an up only story is one that is incredible at pulling new people in, and I think the questions of sort of how do you sustain that? And I think it probably starts at the very beginning with the intentions, and if we're leaning right into pure speculation right away, or maybe you have to lean into the right amount of speculation right away. It feels like there's a lot more art to these things than there is like engineering in and around the vibes that are required to sustain a community and a token.
Yeah, I think OSF is a good example. He's done a really good job of like understanding his like token holders through every stage that he's had, and sort of like making good on that social graph, like the on-chain social graph of it. He has been very clear with what he's wanted to do for a while, and when there's a new idea, he's able to generate some enthusiasm. Luca does this too. Like, here's a new idea that I want to pursue, and he gets backed by those original people.
So I think for me, my answer is like those guys have sort of a new idea, a vision, a very clear vision from day one. And I think one of the challenges, and I think in hackathons and accelerators and just early stage stuff in crypto period, is that there's just so many copycats. Right? And that's maybe too hard of a word, right? Like, it's like the prediction markets start to take off, and then we see like a gazillion prediction markets, or launch pads pop off, or we see a gazillion launch pads. And one of the things that Josh and I think about often is just like, we don't want the person who's thinking about it just now, who's thinking about it 3, 6, 9, 12 months before then. And I think that's, just in the world that we're living in right now with vibe coded apps. And, I think crypto has had this dynamic since day one with open source and open protocols and platforms. Copying and pasting is a very good business model for a short period of time at the very least. So it's an interesting dynamic that we all have to navigate. Joe, really appreciate you hopping on here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Interested in seeing what comes out of the WAP hackathon, and we'll continue to watch your stick figure animations. I think it's
hell yeah,
it's cool, man. I like it.
Yeah, send them to your friends and your enemies if you don't like them. That's all I have. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks, Joe.